Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Hello, and welcome to Here by Nature. Today we're going to be going over Genesis 1:11 through 12. I'm using the New International Version, and apologies ahead of time, the sun is directly in my face. For the first section, God designed creation with order and purpose. So throughout this verse, there's the repetition of according to their kinds a number of times. And this highlights the intense level of thought that God took during the third day when he created all of this. In other words, God used intentional design instead of just throwing something together. God established natural laws for growth, reproduction, and sustainability. Three main key takeaways from this little subsect is to recognize God's order in your life, to embrace your God-given role, and to find stability in God's design. The first section questions are, just as God creates plants to function within their designated purpose, he has also given me a role in his creation. In what ways do I see God's order and purpose in my life? Are there areas where I struggle to trust in his plan? For section 2, God's provision for life. So the overarching idea here is that vegetation serves as the foundation of the food chain, providing for both humans and for animals as well. We'll dive more into this next week on Sunday when we go over Genesis 1:29. Now, the mentioned seed bearing means continuity and abundance. It shows that God ensures continued and ongoing provision through said seeds. This all highlights God's care and faithfulness in his provision. And the three main takeaways for this section are to trust in God to provide, to recognize God's daily blessings in your life, and to be a vessel for God's provision for others as well. For the second section, the stability of creation reminds me that God is consistent and faithful. How have I seen his faithfulness in the way he provides for me? How does knowing that God is intentional in his design bring me peace in seasons of uncertainty? And for section 3, God declares his creation good. Now, this very tiny excerpt from the Bible ends with, "And God saw that it was good," which only shows how creation aligns with his perfect will. This affirms that nature reflects God's goodness as well as his wisdom. It also invites us to appreciate, steward, and to find joy in the natural world as a gift from God to us. Now, the three little key takeaways are: see yourself as part of God's good creation, recognize God's goodness around you, and to respond to God's goodness with gratitude. The journal prompts that I'm still going to be doing are linked down below in one single PDF instead of on screen with the separations like you guys are seeing. For the third section, God looked at his creation and called it good, including humanity. Do I see myself as part of God's good creation? In what ways do I struggle with accepting that I am created intentionally and with purpose? So for the personal reflection part, I kind of want to dive into the second section a little bit, the God's provision for life. Particularly, I believe it's the second question. Yeah. So, how does knowing that God is intentional in his design bring me peace in seasons of uncertainty? So, I'm going to tie in a totally different reference to the Bible, just because this was something that happened to me very recently, and I feel like it's an important story to share. So, the story goes, I'm still missing my rings, my wedding rings. When I was inpatient, at some point, they're still not telling me exactly when it happened, but somebody took off my rings, and either the same person or somebody else lost them, or sold them, or who knows. That's not the point. I went up to my local emergency room, and yet again, they told me the same news, that no, they don't have anything in their safe. And I believe them. I believe something happened with where I was staying inpatient. All of that to say, I was an emotional mess. I just I couldn't understand how somebody would lie, steal, and like just all of these like terrible things. Like I get it. Like some of the people that are inpatient are like drug seeking, and they like need money and like all that kind of stuff. But on my drive home, I was an emotional wreck. Just all of these like terrible, angry thoughts were like in my mind. I felt really silly. Um, I drove very recklessly, to be blunt, or to be not blunt, vague about it. I drove recklessly and potentially scared somebody else. Nobody was hurt, but I drove a little recklessly, and I felt terrible about it whenever I got home. So much so that I decided I was just going to take an emotional like stress nap and just try to forget about it as best I could. So I went into the garden. I got a little picnic blanket, a pillow, and it was a nice day out, so like a very thin blanket. And I fell asleep. I took a nap. Whenever I woke up, I didn't feel any better. Shock, right? I felt terrible still. Like, how can a Christian like act this way and still be considered good, right? But then just like out of nowhere, it was a nice windy day. So when I woke up, like initially those were the thoughts like racing through my mind, just like, oh, I'm terrible, like all this like downer kind of stuff. And then like kind of like right now, like a big, but bigger than this, a gust of wind happened, and the light started to peep through from the clouds, and I heard a voice saying, "Rise up." And immediately I was just like reminded that I was given the breath of life, and like just that in itself is a blessing. So yeah, I still don't know how to like properly end that story, but that's my personal reflection part of this week, is that like even in our mistakes, like we have God's grace, we have his mercy, we have his forgiveness, because we are human. And while we strive to be perfect and be good, we will make mistakes. And the important part is to like return back to God for his forgiveness and to try again. Like the entire point is to try again. But so hopefully you heard what you needed to hear today through me and this little message that I crafted. Apologies for background noise. If you guys can pick it up, hear it. If this is something that you're interested in, please feel free to subscribe. That would be really rad. And I would love to hear from you down in the comments below. Either general prompts, some words of encouragement to me or others. Like, truly, like, I want this to be like a cool, like, awesome community. And yeah, until next week, friends, I'll see you then, and have a blessed one. Oh, I hope they're okay.